left.
Yeah, everybody hated what you had to say about linear, so they all left, and
Yes.
YouTube agreed and said, this is not allowed on our platform.
Uh-huh.
They just decided, no.
Yeah, so yeah, the linear talk was what pushed everyone over the edge.
All right, we'll give everybody a minute to come back.
Totally fair. Totally fair.
Their platform, their rules.
Yeah, linear was the thing that pushed everyone off the edge, or pushed the internet, broke the internet by talking about linear.
But look at that, everybody's coming back.
Yay.
You guys, you are amazing. Thank you. This is so frustrating. I don't know what is going on, why it's happening. It just is.
Yeah.
So
well, thank you. Thank you for sticking with us.
You are truly the best. Thank you so much. Okay.
So should we dive into series?
I think we should. And for the record, because of the interruptions, I think we'll go more than just the hour. If you have to go, I totally understand. But I think it's only fair that we do like a really good solid hour of trying to give this thing its due, if it will let us.
Yeah, we're going to give it a try. Hopefully everything's as it should be and
Trying. Okay, before it craps out again, let's go. So overall, I want to know takeaways.
From
a first timer, what really grabbed you with this show or the experience or any of the above?
Okay. So takeaways from me, I've got a couple different ones. It's hard for me to decouple the experience of doing this show from the experience of watching Babylon 5, right?
Sure.
Right. So
makes sense.
The challenge for me is like, how do we separate watching Babylon 5 from sharing my thoughts on Babylon 5? I don't know that there's a difference for me.
I don't know if you can.
So the first big takeaway for me is like specifically to the show was sort of my subversion of expectations for what a sci-fi show is, what a sci-fi show could be.
Okay.
I'm just not a sci-fi fan. It's never been in my blood. I'm sorry. It's just something I never had. And so I had a certain level of expectation that this, like Babble 5 was going to be a lot more of me roasting you.
I think deep down I was halfway expecting it. Yeah.
I had that expectation. It's just going to be very like Mr. Science Theater 3000, cheap seats for you sports fans, like roasting things that you love.
And that would have completely been okay. You could be like the naysayer. I can be the one defending it. That would have been a dynamic.
And season 1, I think we had some of that. And then I realized that's not what the show really is. Mm-hmm. And I was able to get a lot more into it because of that. And just like that subversion of expectation was really, really important and really good for me. So
cool.
Second one, just one of the things I know is really important for you as a human being is like always trying to do the right thing and holding on to your honor and holding on to your dignity. And I see now where a lot of that comes from.
Yeah, I might have taken some life lessons from Babylon 5 as an impressionable 17-year-old. Yes. Absolutely. It might have not necessarily formed my moral center because that formed so much earlier in life, but did it really solidify some things? Absolutely. It was a shining example of how to be.
Yeah.
And so I did absorb that 100%.
Yeah. And so I think that was an important takeaway, just like not only seeing it through you, but where that comes from and the moral center of the show, the honor, the discipline, the what's the other word? Adversity, how you handle adversity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good to see that. It was very well written that way.
Well, that's Joe.
Yes.
Just generally speaking, that man, I admire him so much. If you have not read the autobiography, Becoming Superman, boy, so much of why Babylon 5 is what it is. And pretty much any other work too, like if you've done Rising Stars or Midnight Nation, a lot of his life experience goes into those projects, as you would expect a writer to do. But the things he has been through, they really have been extraordinary. He has beaten the odds in so many ways and come out somehow a better person for what he went through, when really he could have been a terrible person and people would learn about his past and say, well, that makes sense. Nope. He went the opposite way, and I can't thank him enough for being kind of that beacon of hope
Sure.
because hope is a huge theme in Babylon 5 as to what is possible if you just keep going.
Yeah. All right, I have 3 more, but 2 of them are kind of connected.
Okay.
And I made my list last night in preparation for this. I've been thinking about it a long time, but I finally just wrote it down last night. So these are 1 and 4 on my list. And number 1 was the openness of the fan base.
Yeah, you guys are so great.
Honestly, just how open and willing to share your stories and willing to help me along and help both of us understand a little bit more, certainly me about 99% more than her, but just your willingness to accept someone who wanted to try this kind of thing. I don't know that every show would have been, every show's fans would have been as open to that. And like I said at the beginning, like I was probably going to maybe roast her a little bit. That was sort of the plan. But I never felt like you guys were roasting me.
And thank you for that. You would have had every right to.
Yeah, of course. And I kept kind of waiting for that, and it never really happened. And it's so cool that this fan base that's now 20 plus years in the making is such a community that I didn't even realize existed. And and then the 4th one on my list is, it made me realize how similar our fandoms are. And
yes.
And I certainly am a nerd for my things, and if you follow me on Twitter, you see those things. And so we're very much the same, guys. We really are.
So just so folks know, if they don't know, what are your fandoms?
I mean, let's get really specific here. That my number 1 fandom is high school sports in our home state of Wyoming. I mean, like that.
Yeah.
Nerd. And I'm a huge nerd for that kind of stuff. But it's also journalism. It's also comedy. It's also there's a whole bunch of different things that I'm kind of dabbling in at multiple times. But I mean,
but it's the same general idea, is what you're saying.
It's when you find something you're passionate about and care about it and love it, you want to share it, and you guys have done that. You've shared your passion with me and been very open to it, and that's really, really cool. So.
Yeah, and I thank you guys so much for that, because you could have said, "Oh, a first timer? Okay, fresh meat, let's go." No, everybody was pretty welcoming, like, "Oh my gosh, a new fan, this is exciting." Commander Thudpucker says that B5 fans remind her of Rush fans. Maybe it's because this is an older show where we haven't had a reboot or too much continuation. I mean, it's been pretty sparing in recent years, and it doesn't look like anything new in the Babylon 5 universe is coming anytime soon. So we have what we have, and we hold on to it dearly because we love it so much. And so when somebody new does come into the fandom, it's exciting because you're keeping it alive.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me, so I have a website. Oh, dear God. I'm sorry, but I have a website. It's dedicated to Wyoming high school football.
Yeah.
And over the years, I've seen a couple people come in, and everyone likes football. Like moms love to watch their sons play football. So I get people in and out all the time.
Sure.
But I've had a few people who have stuck with me for what's like 15 years now that I've had my site. And to be able to give them a voice has been really cool. And I felt like that's kind of what you guys did for me, is you were able to give me a voice. And I understand how important that is. I appreciate it. So thank you. Yeah.
So I do agree with Elric about how B5 is an intelligent show. It's not talking down to you, I think, at any point in its series run. It's a fantastic show written for intelligent people. And even non-sci-fi fans can get into this show just because it takes place in the future. There's so much else going on. There's politics, there's drama, there's humor. There's a great mix. And then of course there's the ongoing story element where if you are dying to know what happens next, you've got to keep going.
Yes. All right. Last big takeaway for me.
Yeah.
Is going over the last 2.5 years, and watching the show and talking about it has strengthened my connection with my wife.
Aww.
And that's the most important thing to me, is that this has brought us closer together. And that, I mean, that's everything to me. And that's really what I would hope would have happened.
Well, and it did, because I felt that too, where I felt like we were sharing, you know, a thing.
Yes.
Going through this one, that you wanted to do it in the first place, that you were willing to try. And if you would have bowed out after a few episodes, like the episode Infection, it's not a good one, but thank goodness it happens a little early on. If you just stick with it, it gets so much better. I was a little worried in season 1. Like, you thought, oh, this show? This is what's got you so hyped up?
I was so ready to roast. Yeah.
And if it had continued like that, you would have had every right. But then things changed a little bit. They had to start in one place just to kind of keep executives happy. And then Joe really got going with what he intended to do.
Right.
Yeah, but then as we kind of went through this experience and you were making your predictions, and I could see that you were getting into it, it just felt really cool to share that and share this show with you, because I do love it so very much. And to see you finding things, and sometimes the way that you were so perceptive about things that were about to happen or going to happen. Because, I mean, sometimes your predictions were way out there, and then other times they were so spot on. I just thought, did you read spoilers? But he didn't.
No.
He didn't, you guys.
No,
he knows nothing.
I worked really well, and I think the number of missed predictions I had, and somebody asked about my predictions, the number of missed predictions I've had along the way proves that I wasn't engaging in any spoilers whatsoever.
Probably more losses than wins.
Oh, yeah, I have a losing record.
But when you were on it, it was shocking that you were onto it, just because I remember kind of like the back and forth, the subversion of expectations. I don't know if I had a lot of accurate predictions myself. So you definitely had more than I did. I can say that.
Well, and the thing is, a lot of the big things I didn't see coming. Like, a lot of the big things, I just didn't see it. A lot of stuff came out of the blue, and I think this show went above and beyond to prove itself as a show that was not afraid to just have things happen.
Yes.
And then people react to it.
Yes. And as a longtime Star Trek fan, and when Trek was king in the 90s, that was the expectation among us sci-fi fans, is everything ends up kind of hunky-dory. Everything's very episodic. Right. By the end of the episode, everybody's okay. In Babylon 5, nope. Anything could go. Anybody can die. Things can happen. Things are going to blow up. There's going to be consequences for storylines down the road. And so when I watched Babylon 5 for the first time, that was really refreshing. Just like, oh, okay, this is a little different. This is much more realistic. And no, it's not as a hopeful future as Star Trek. It's a lot more realistic. But then I kind of grew to like that too.
Yeah. And I was afraid of, and this goes with Darwin's comment right here, I was afraid of an Alien of the Week kind of trope. I was afraid of that. In season 1, I could not tell. And if this was the Alien of the Week, or if this was something that I needed to remember. And it was when it became clear that you just never knew. Once I accepted that in my heart, the way you accept like a religious figure in your heart, once I accepted that in my heart, I was much more okay with it. Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes people just are in your life for a few days. Sometimes people are in your life for a few days, and then you see them again in a few years for a couple more days. And sometimes people come into your life and they're there forever. And sometimes people come into your life, you think they're going to be there forever, and it ends up being cut short. It's so much more realistic than an Alien of the Week and or a group, right? Like a crew, to nudge, wink, wink, the Voyager crew, right?
Yes.
The Babylon 5 crew was much more malleable, and I think that was much more realistic.
Yeah, I think that is actually one of the big takeaways I got from Babylon 5 overall, if we can kind of segue into takeaways.
Sure.
Is that, life is kind of a fickle thing, and it's exactly what you were saying. People are going to kind of come and go. Some stay longer than others. True lifelong friendships, associations, relationships, they're rare. Yes. So when you find a good one, you've got to really cherish that.
Yeah, and not only all of that, but it could end like that.
anytime.
And, R.I.P. Kosh.
Oh my gosh, when that happened, I really wondered if you were going to shed tears. Just because you loved Kosh so much.
Love that man.
Yeah.
So,
Blinky lights.
So I want to get into your takeaways. I don't know if you came up with a list of takeaways or not.
I do have some in my head.
Okay.
So some of the big things that I kind of have over the years just kind of instilled or taken away from Babylon 5. I think one of the big ones is, of course, never start a fight, always finish it. Great life lesson. Definitely a good way to go about life. I hate picking fights. I don't like confrontations, but if you mess with me, I will make sure there are consequences.
Sure.
Speaking of which, I never really had to get mean on the channel.
No.
This is YouTube. I was fully expecting a bunch of negative comments. I was expecting to delete spoilers every single week. We only dealt with 1 or 2 trolls.
Yeah.
Through the whole series course. That's pretty amazing. That's, again, another big testament to Babylon 5 fans. We don't suck. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So, I just want to thank you all for being so mindful, because I really was very closely guarding those comments. and going forward, if I can just jump to another thing that I wanted to address, is every video has, like, when you set up a YouTube video, it says, how do you want to handle your comments? Is it a free-for-all? Do you want to hold inappropriate comments, possibly that might be spam? Or do you want to hold them all and approve them one at a time? I did that latter part. Now that the show is essentially done, well, what do? Do we keep just checking in every now and then? Because I'm sure as things go on, more people are going to find the show and comment. We've seen that. Our numbers still in our last season have grown a lot. And so with the longevity, just having the videos out there, more people will come across the show. And I don't want to rob them of the opportunity to interact, especially if they're first timing like you were.
Right.
So I think I'll kind of keep an eye on it for a while. And then if things really are quiet, maybe after a while, I'll take the comments, just like close them and just say, okay, this show was 2 years ago, let's say, and then kind of close them out and be done with that aspect of it.
Yeah, or open it up for a free-for-all.
Maybe, although would that suck to spoil it for first-timers, especially when I'm such a jerk about, don't you dare spoil anything for Patrick, and then I leave the comments open, it's like, green, purple in season 1, you know what I mean?
Right.
Just, I don't know if that's the right thing to do.
Fair enough.
Okay, so other takeaways. I already mentioned the whole thing about things being finite, appreciate people for who they are. Definitely something I got out of that. The other thing, I really took away an appreciation for the way Joe wrote addiction in Babylon 5. He's one of the very few people in TV to really illustrate what that's like from a number of angles. And it's a bitch. It's not easy, and including for the person who's going through it. When you lose control, that it's really tough to deal with that. And if you have had addiction yourself, or you know someone who has, you know what a crazy hole that is to get out of and pick up the pieces. Definitely a lot of good psychological background from Joe's part, fulfilling that, but then also dealing with alcoholism in his family, stuff like that. Yeah, there's some really good stuff there. And I appreciated the more accurate portrayal of addiction that wasn't just resolved in one episode and everything's hunky-dory.
Yes.
Yeah, it was nice to see that, especially in the 90s where that wasn't commonplace. It's probably more commonplace now that we have more serialized TV, but back then, not so much. I mean, Voyager tried to deal with depression twice in 2 separate episodes with different stories.
Right.
They were still good, but I'm just saying it's really hard to cram something as deep as addiction into 45 minutes of TV. It's
Right.
yeah, you can't. You can't. It's not comprehensive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, other takeaways. I think one big thing that I've tried to keep with me in my head, especially while doing this show, is that there are people that are simply not going to understand you or agree with you, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong. It just means they are who they are and you are who you are, and you got to do your thing in spite of that.
Yes,
you know, not
very
everybody's going to
like
be with you.
Jakar and Londo.
Exactly. I love that scene so much. That it might be one of my very favorite Londo and Jakar moments. And that's saying a lot just because there were so many good ones. But the way he finds the hilarity in the fact that Londo's going to die and he doesn't even have to kill him. Just, I'm sorry. The way Andreas Katsoulis put that out there, it wasn't written to be funny. Joe did not have that expectation, but then when he saw the performance, he thought, okay. So good stuff. Such good stuff. So that's definitely something like you got to have a thick skin to get through the world. And especially when you're a John Sheridan, where everybody practically is fighting you.
Yeah.
You either are going to stay completely true to who you are and keep marching forward to the very end and you're going to commit, or you're going to falter and fail. So John Sheridan was a really good hero in that sense, where he had kind of that crisis of conscience, not consciousness, I hope not, and realized that he had to do the hard thing rather than the convenient thing. He did the inconvenient thing, if I may very horribly imitate the Russian president of Earth. Yeah, you either do or you don't, and life will test you, right? At some point, we're all going to have that moment. He had that crucial moment and saw it through. That was a very good example to me. Showed me kind of maybe a blueprint for what to do, maybe.
Sure. But just in a different perspective, a better understanding of like how to handle that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And as an inexperienced 17-year-old, just barely getting out there in the world, that was important. And I still go back to that all the time, every day. Yes. And Kurt says, if all else fails, you nuke them.
Yeah.
That's also a good lesson,
yes.
I think. Maybe. I don't know. So, yes. Darwin says, typical American. It's true. It's true.
Yes.
John Sheridan was kind of that all-American hero, right?
Yeah.
Red-blooded hero, yeah. Okay.
So other takeaways that you have, or things you want to share, or
there's probably a gazillion of them.
Okay.
We could fill the whole hour with that, probably. There might be more that I think along the way, but for the time being, what would you like to talk about next?
So one of the questions that came up in the chat probably before we crashed the second time was about favorite characters and who my favorite characters are, who your favorite characters are.
Okay.
So, Kosh.
Yo.
I didn't get to wear this shirt on the show because it's got green in it. And we had the green screen, and there would be little splotches of stars flying through my chest.
Yeah.
If I actually wore this on the show, so I haven't been able to wear it. So breaking it out.
Yeah, we made that mistake once.
Yes, we did.
And that was a lot of work to try and fix that up. We patched it up, but yeah.
So Kosh was one of my favorite characters, and I had a very soft spot in my heart for Lita.
Yes. You always were her champion. I appreciated that.
Yeah, and she was, I don't know, she always put up with so much and wasn't always the best about it, but always found a way forward. And it really pissed me off in season 5 when it was when Sheridan didn't realize why Lita was upset. And I'm like, damn you, man. Damn you. You should know better. That was so frustrating. So, oh, yes, this is my first Babylon 5 tea. I've had it for, I don't know, a couple of years now. No, about a year. Probably about a year.
I think I might have gotten it last Christmas.
Season 3, yeah, about a year. So yeah, Kosh was awesome. I love how cryptic he was, and I loved, Lita and what she was able to do. Those were probably my 2 favorite characters. And then one person who's on my list, I'm going to talk about him more in just a second, is Zathras.
Zathras! Oh, getting some good love here.
Yeah.
Yes. One thing that I did find a little surprising is with Lita in Sleeping in Light, she's not even mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Once again, underappreciated, undervalued, and forgotten.
Working class struggle. I love that, Andrew. That's a great way to put it. Working class struggle. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Babylon 5, I think here's another takeaway, is I think it taught me the caste system.
Yeah.
About how societies worked. I realized I was worker caste. And I was okay with that.
Yes.
Because I could build white stars.
And, I mean, those were some of my favorites. So, yeah.
Very cool. Let's see, my favorites. Oh, gosh, I love them all for their own reasons, of course. It's like asking, who's your favorite kid if you have several kids? But I would say the people that I maybe learned or enjoyed the most was maybe Ivanova for her humor. Her biting sense of humor, I immediately fell in love with that. I love Delenn for her wisdom. I wish I could be more like her. I love Jakar. And the way, his story, the way he changed into a better man and the way he went about his life during and after his incarceration, I definitely picked up some things with that. And I really just, the way Londo and Jakar, their arc constantly weaves probably some of the best character development anywhere, in any show.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I remember we talked about this a little bit in season 1. It was the odd couple, right? The two bickering, Jakar and Londo. And Jakar, the way he grew, the way he changed. You knew he had it in him, but the way it came about, and the way it showed up in this series was really cool.
Yeah, I would say the character I respect the most is Jakar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, again, loving them for different reasons.
Sure.
I love John Sheridan for just having the strength of character to fight for what he believes in. He really did. I love Stephen Franklin for just the little subtle ways he would inject a little bit of humor into situations. Like, he didn't get much of a chance to be funny, and neither did Delenn, by the way. But when those actors got the chance to be funny, they were great. Like, I'm thinking
Bastards!
I'm thinking of that scene in particular for Franklin, not just Delenn, although I love the fact that Delenn got to say bastards more than once. No, when they're talking right before she comes in, Sheridan says something like, if one other person, is irrational today, I'm going to shoot myself in the head. And she comes in and Franklin says, well, I'll get the gun. Great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah. So should we get into some moments?
Moments.
I've seen a few pop up in the chat, and I've made a list, my top 5 moments.
Okay.
Top 5
Let's
moments.
count them down.
So they're not necessarily in order, but there's definitely some things that I will never forget.
All right.
So my favorite 2 seconds of Babylon 5.
Yes.
Do you know what it is?
Oh, no, I'm not sure if I do. What are they?
Okay, so my favorite 2 seconds of Babylon 5 is the first time Lita puts Bester in his place. And she does that little...
Okay. I remember when we watched that, you were...
Oh, that's so cool. Just yeah, I'm stronger than you think, bitch. Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
Just the satisfied smirk that she got. It was so cathartic to see somebody finally stand up to Bester in a way that was on his level, right?
It's true. Like, nobody can really knock Bester off his feet the way she could in that moment. And that was a revelation to, I think, maybe both him and her.
Yeah, and it was just finally somebody did it. Finally. And I'm glad it was Lita, and just it was so cool. It's just that those 2 seconds of each.
Fiery pissed off Lita is the best. I really love that about her. When she finally does turn that corner and just won't take it anymore, that's the Lita I'm here for.
Right. So 2 things that we have already talked about are 2 of my other favorite moments.
Okay.
And I say favorite couched in a certain understanding because I put one of my, I shouldn't say favorite, most memorable.
Okay.
Most memorable is R.I.P. Kosh, when Kosh has to make his sacrifice to save everything, right? That was just an incredibly powerful moment. And I remember that being like, sometimes, I think I mentioned that in the episode that we talked about this, is sometimes you don't realize what you're asking people to do when you ask them to do things.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those little things that kind of crept into my brain. And now as a teacher, when I ask students to do things, I'm so much more conscious about, okay, I'm asking them to do this. What does that actually mean for their lives? What does that actually mean for... And so it was just one of those takeaways that I had that was like an epiphany of, oh my gosh, Sheridan wasn't asking Kosh to off himself. That's really what he was asking him to do.
And didn't know. And it was one of those moments that just stuck with me. So cool. Good one.
Third moment, we already talked about this. Zothras was so annoying. So annoying. God, I hated that character when he first showed up. It was the return of Zothras that made him so lovable. And it was that when he came back, and just had that little arc where we see Zathras 2.0. Yeah, oh my gosh, that's what made that character for me. And that was so like, again, first impressions are not everything. People can redeem themselves. Like all these little lessons that come out of that. And it wasn't that he was annoying. It was just that's who he was. And once he was able to kind of show that value and show that there's something deeper there, it was, oh my gosh, this is really cool. and Zathras really is an asset and can be a really cool guy.
Totally. And Tim Choate really gave that character more of a life than I think anybody would have perceived going in. Because that first time we see him, I mean, yeah, who is this guy? What is he doing? Maybe he is kind of annoying, but then, yeah, you really kind of get to know him, and he's freaking hilarious. You can't ever get too much Zathras. Yes. I hope he's still somewhere in the Great Machine, caretaking it, making sure that Drawl's okay.
And I didn't get why you liked him so much. I didn't understand that. And we would talk a little bit off camera about Zathras, and the first time we saw him, like, what? Why? This guy, really? And then he came back, and that's what sealed it.
You called him Harry Veer, I recall.
Yes, Harry
and
Veer.
I just thought, one, you're insulting Veer, sort of, but maybe you're getting it kind of from the comical angle, but not quite in the way I think it's intended. But then, again, one of the cool things about this whole process was seeing how you saw this show that I've seen a gazillion times, how you were seeing it differently or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I've got two more, maybe three more.
Okay,
so one is way back in season 1, and one of the moments where I knew this show was different.
Yeah.
Was when we had Captain Sinclair and the episode where Commander Sinclair, sorry, and he said, "Well, I'm out of ideas."
Remember that? Was our kind of running gag in season 1 is I have an idea.
It was that was my roast, was like, oh, he's just going to find a way every single time. And then when he didn't and stuff went down that was like, oh, this is kind of bad. I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is a little bit different. There isn't going to be a resolution every single time. There isn't going to be a quick fix or a...
He's not always going to save the day.
Ex machina every single time, right? Oh my gosh, that was kind of revelatory to have that happen. And it was one of the things that turned me from, okay, this is going to be fun, to, okay, oh, this is actually something that I have to get into a little bit more. And
nice.
Yeah, it was a great little moment. So, and then, okay, so we have a great question from Legionnaire, and I don't want to forget it about other things we wish we had seen on screen.
Oh, yes, very good idea.
Yeah.
Yes. And Daniel, I totally agree. Mordin and Bester are fantastic villains, each in their own very different rights. Mordin, I almost dare say I hate Mordin more just because he does what he does with a smile on his face. But one of my most favorite lines in the whole show is when Bester kind of looks to Garibaldi and says, "Anatomically impossible, Mr. Garibaldi, but you are welcome to try." Just such a good line. And the way that Walter Koenig delivers that. Speaking of which, I mean, okay, Star Trek fans, we all knew him as Chekhov, but the dude had so much more talent than Star Trek ever let him show off. And I'm so glad he got to play Bester.
Yeah.
Because he really got to really have fun with a different kind of character and show off his acting range and show just what a complex guy this villain was. And in season 5, we get Korra's mother, Korra's father, where we see that story from his point of view and the Psychor point of view.
Sure.
That's another thing that I loved about season 5 that I didn't mention is we get kind of those weird slice of life stories we otherwise would not have gotten. We got that. We got Ranger training. We got Day of the Dead, view from the gallery with Mac and Bo. Yeah, I wouldn't want to give that up.
Last thing I'm going to say about like moments, etc. And this really isn't a moment, but it's one of the things that I feel like I have to talk about. Okay. Which is ISN.
Oh, yes, Mr. Journalist here had some beef.
I had a lot of beef.
You all heard it.
I heard oof. You know, knockoff Barbara Walters
yes.
And the deception, the deception documentary, as I'm going to call it for the rest of my life.
That's, yeah.
You know, it was great to see journalism represented. It was so bad to see journalism represented so poorly.
90s journalism at that.
Yeah, and I hope I hope I'm training the next generation to do better than ISN. And yeah, it was so frustrating to watch, and yet important to understand perception of the profession. And sometimes I get lost in the weeds about what journalism is because I'm so deep in it. And
yeah, that's a good point.
It's good to have those refreshers about here's the perception of what you do and how you do it and what you're training your students to do. And yeah, it just became very personal for me.
Sure, which is why you had such a beef with it. But yeah, at the same time, though, I'm glad that it was in some way good for you, just because, yeah, it is easy to kind of get lost while you're in the thick of it. Whereas on the outside, public perception of journalism, the media's role, blah, 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 and all that, all over the place.
Yes.
For a variety of reasons that we won't go into right here.
Yeah. No, and
because this isn't a lecture.
No, I was going to say, if y'all want to hear more from me on this, go ahead and take my news writing class.
There you go.
But I'm holding back.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
but it was one of those things that I feel like was a thread for me all through the series was how are people getting their information? And what's the role of journalism in a not just global, but beyond global interpretation.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool to think about. Even if ISN pissed me off more than usual, it was good to think about that. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, but newspapers do live on.
Yeah.
We have Universe Today.
Bizarre.
So there is that.
Yeah.
There is some hope somehow.
Fax machines becoming a much bigger deal in journalism than I ever anticipated.
Well, that's probably the 90s talking, but nevertheless.
Everything's a product of its time.
Yeah. As much as of a visionary as Joe was, I do think that he might have slipped a little as far as the future of journalism went.
Yes.
But things were also very different back then. I don't think that journalism was under quite the same threat, at least in the States, as it kind of is now.
Yeah.
And we had no idea about social media and how things were going to evolve with that. So can't take points off.
And remember, too, that this was in the height of like Dateline and
exactly that's what we
camera
have.
Investigations and blah 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 blah. So
hence knock off Barbara Walters.
Yes.
Yeah, and
knock off. Anyone remember Stone Phillips?
Oh, I do. I remember that
Dateline.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's it. Darman brings up a very good thing. Ivanova is the voice of resistance. How do you think she did?
She, for as resistant as she was, Sheridan made the right choice. Yeah.
It's true. She did a great job.
Yeah, she did really well. And she's authoritative. She's had the right tone, but she was also, this is going to sound weird, presentable.
Meaning like she has kind of the face.
Yeah, and there's a huge difference between, I hate to say this, but it's true, people are more likely to trust information coming from attractive people.
Yes,
We've
and
learned this about human nature.
Can we continue that thread just a little bit and say that she also has that trustworthy face? Sheridan was absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
I mean, she fits the bill.
Yeah. Even though she hated it, she was the right person. So.
And she was good at it.
Mm-hmm.
She had kind of that really good, solid newscaster cadence that you have to have, sort of like the Walter Cronkites of the world, the Tom Brokaws, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So can we get into other things that we wanted to see on screen? Because there's something I wanted to see on screen that didn't happen, inspired by today.
While it's in your mind, go for it.
I really wanted to see Ivanova struggling with a buzzing mic.
Oh.
How do I?
Oh, too soon. Oh.
Too soon?
But then, that would have been interesting seeing them muddle through some technical difficulties. And I could just imagine her going on a little bit of a tear.
Yeah, and Zathras comes in. Mic settings all wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't have anything nice. Which is kind of how I was feeling earlier in the hour. I'm so glad this stream seems to be holding up.
Yeah. So other things I wish I would have seen on screen. How about Jakar and Lita's first date?
I want to see their first day as they go off on their adventures in that ship. What's that like?
Yep. Other things I wish I had seen on screen. I don't know. maybe you can spark some things in me. What do you
Okay.
wish you had seen on screen?
Here's one I want to know about. If there were ever a missing scene that I would have loved to have known is in season 4, when Ivanova finds out that Garibaldi betrayed Sheridan, she basically says, I want him shot on sight if he shows up on Babylon 5.
Right.
Did those two ever really reconcile? That's a missing scene that I would have loved to have known. How would that have gone down? Because Garibaldi did prove himself, but with Ivanova, those two were like a brother and sister for the longest time. And so that betrayal, I think she took that very hard. And so then how does she deal with that? And how do they bury the hatchet or don't they? It seems like they're okay in Sleeping in Light, but they're not exactly talking to each other that much. They're just in the same room together without killing each other.
Yes.
There's a lot of gray area in between those two extremes. So there's one.
All right. I just thought of one.
Yeah.
Which was, we see Emperor Londo's demise on screen.
Yeah.
I really think it would have been great to see the day that Jakar ends Londo's life, like the series of events leading up to that.
Oh.
And like the day of, like, I think that would have been a really interesting thing to see. I kept waiting for that, and I honestly kept waiting for it in season 5 just to have a flash forward of just a couple scenes of, you've crossed the line for the last time. or was it more of a, put me out of my misery, I can't take this anymore? Like, I really wanted resolution for that, and it never really happened. So
it's kind of like they had a little bit of a pact in a weird way, where Londo, maybe he sends Jakar a message. So I heard you're back in the quadrant.
Yes.
Can you kill me? And then, of course, the Keeper awakens and they kill each other.
Right.
But
yeah.
Here's a missing scene.
Okay.
That I've always wanted to have is when Commander Sinclair becomes Ambassador Sinclair. He has to go to Minbar. He gets reassigned. He's about to marry Catherine Sakai, and we never see her again.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, whatever happened
What
to
are
her?
their conversations like? Did she? I know in the background canon there's resolution to this, but if we could have just seen anything on screen, like, yeah, Catherine's with me on Minbar, like in a message to Garibaldi or something, I think just for the sake of the completeness of the show, one little line is what I was looking for. Yeah. But I would have loved to have seen them just a tiny bit more. Because for obvious reasons behind the scenes, he's just gone for the most part. But the character, he just, yeah. I really wanted to see what happened with their relationship. And yes, I do know what actually happened.
Yeah, I don't, but...
Well, it's complicated. I won't...
Okay.
Let's not do it on the stream. I'll tell you behind.
Yeah. And, yeah, I think that was somebody else who I saw once and I was like... And then I saw him again, and then they just sort of disappeared. Brother Theo.
Yes.
I would have liked to have seen a little bit more on their work and like their resolution. I would have loved to have seen them like after a couple seasons, as they were like season 3, right?
Yeah.
Sometime in season 5, just being like going up to Cher and be like, okay, our work here is done.
Yeah.
And or saying we're gonna go check out this something or some sort of just deeper story for them, because they were pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a very good one.
Mm-hmm.
I had another thing just a moment ago. Oh, relating to Brother Theo. Okay, in my head canon, I've written a story. I'll tell you all what it is very quickly.
So fanfic.
It's fanfic.
Okay.
Sure. But here's what I thought happened is after they gave Sheridan and Delenn the information they had, they left Babylon 5, went back to Earth, and were probably eventually arrested. And so there's a missing scene in my head where President Lushenko gives them a full pardon.
Okay.
And that would resolve their arc.
Okay. Yeah. I think that would have been pretty neat. Yeah.
So in my head, that's what happened, and you're welcome to install that in your head canon as well.
All right.
So, Mountains of Elysium. Hi, by the way. Mm-hmm. That's the person who tunes into the Zocalo. That's my other Babylon 5 show that I'm doing later today. Mm-hmm. Would have loved to have seen Londo's wife Timov again. I totally agree. That was another thing that was a kind of a one-off that just sort of dropped. It wasn't necessary, I guess, but at the same time, wouldn't it have been interesting to see an old Timov maybe by Londo's side at the throne, assuming she has some sort of royal engagements she has to be a part of as his wife, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that could have been just even the most slightest something.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. All right, I think it's time for your favorite moments.
Favorite moments, okay.
Yeah,
off the top of my head.
I know you can do this off the top of your head. You can do this in your sleep. Some of your
I probably
moments.
do. I'm talking in my sleep. In honor of the 9 and the 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's cover the big ones. First and foremost, Severed Dreams, Delenn coming through in the White Star, saving the day, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's a big one.
Here she comes to save the
day. And she did. She's a badass. Also, how about the We Have Come Home speech when Sheridan and company are coming back to take Earth? That's Sheridan. I mean, those are big moments, but some smaller ones that I thoroughly enjoy. Okay, Delenn's bad hair day. And Ivanova has to help sort some things out. That's funny. Again, I love it when Mira Furlong gets to do comedy as Delenn just because she's often so serious. And she gets those really deep, long monologues, which she kills it. But she can do funny too. So I love it when she gets those moments. And that was, I think, probably the best one.
Okay.
Another funny one is when Veer has to explain to Ivanova that they have 6.
Oh.
I love it when Ivanova is in awkward situations that she instantly hates. So when she has to deal with the Lumadi ambassador and have sex human style, a la walk like an Egyptian, the 6, what else? Probably an infinite amount of Susan and Marcus scenes. Stuff like that. Sure. It's fun to watch her just really out of her element because she's usually just so composed and in control. When she's in work mode, you know that she's 100% competent and nothing thrown her way is really going to get her down. But when it comes to those real life kind of common sense moments, she's a fish out of water. Mm-hmm. It's nice to see her squirm every now and then. Mm-hmm. Oh, also, yes, Bear says green, purple, dealing with the Drazi. There is another scene that I really love where she's coming out of the lift and she's got streamers and confetti all over her. She's walking with a cane. It's been a really rowdy party with the Drazi because she's wearing her green sash. And Sheridan just happens to stumble upon this and says, yes. What the? And she says, don't even ask. And then she kind of limps off and it's adorable. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So some other good moments while you're thinking of others, some other good moments in the chat with the last episode of season 2 with the rehearsed apology.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Very good one.
Delenn in the black dress.
Oh yeah. Sexy time. Yep. Yes.
Yeah. It was a
Rifa's death. Oh yeah. Okay. This is one of my very favorites too. I'm so glad you put that in the comments. Mm-hmm. To no hiding place while they're singing and he's running from the Narns and then just basically getting beaten to death. Mm-hmm. Wow. The composition of that whole thing. I don't know if it gets a whole lot better than that, man. That is probably my favorite Babylon 5 episode, by the way. Just
really?
In terms of just an overall one segment of a story, that I think is the most intense for me. I do not necessarily know why, just things click for me. It seems to be on all cylinders because season 3, generally speaking, is very good. Yeah. But it has a really solid beginning, middle, end. And it stands out to me. I'm having a hard time articulating and speaking at the moment. So why don't you talk while I get water?
So a couple things. I do want to come back to Darman's question about court and justice scenes. We did see it. I wrote it down. I want to come back to it. But a couple Veer and Lanier in the bar was great. And then Veer's wave.
My favorite as well. I was going to mention that.
But my favorite Veer scene is when he goes crazy in the Zocalo.
Yes! Today he is a man.
Yes. Yeah, that was my favorite Veer.
Cutting to him getting the sword. Oh, yeah. That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, so Veer had some just great moments, some great comedic relief every now and again.
Yeah.
Yeah, some great stuff. So
Veer is my favorite of the secondary characters by far and away. Stephen Furst really knocks that out of the park just as a funny but very solid guy. Like Veer has a conscience. I always appreciated that. And it's in great contrast to Londo, who I think wants to do good, but is willing to blur that line to get what he wants because he's much more Centauri. And I think I mentioned this somewhere earlier but who raised Veer?
Yes.
Who taught him to have a moral center that was not quite in line with Centauri standards? I mean, it's a lot more in line with us as to, I guess, human standards as to what we consider good and moral.
Yeah. So some other things that have popped up. So Brian said the death of Morden. Yes, absolutely.
His head on, yeah.
Yeah, that was good. And then we're starting to get into some more like emotional ones, like Londo at the window and the bombing.
Yeah, intense.
You know, Ivanova and Franklin after Marcus, like those are some really
gosh,
emotionally intense scenes. Yeah, those deserve.
Let's
spots on the
briefly
list.
talk about both of those.
Yes.
Yeah,
good
it's
choices.
really weird to think that Peter Jurasik is looking at a green screen in that moment. That's all CGI, and for him to be reflecting all of that, damn, he can act. It was really good. And speaking of people who can act, Claudia Christian knocked it out of the park with that. It's not really a monologue, but her talking about Marcus in the wake of his death and just how much that destroyed her as a person. She deserved all of the awards for that and got none because sci-fi is still, to this day, underappreciated. Yeah. Yes, those are all really good, powerful moments.
And so to come back to the question about court and justice, there was definitely a different interpretation of justice. Yeah.
Okay, where are you going with that?
Okay, I'm going back to one of the things that angered me about Londo in season 5 was him not getting the chance to hear the evidence against him.
Oh, right.
Before he had to defend himself. Like he got a report of what was said, but he wasn't able to watch it.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was weird, but I think everything else was pretty straightforward, but it was also very sort of, I don't know what the word for it is, but counselor driven, or I don't know if you want to say autocratic, but Sheridan was definitely leading that.
Yeah.
And the command staff was definitely judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah, that really was different.
There weren't a lot of juries, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense still why he was not in that room to hear it as it was coming out. Now, I think our comments reflected that. I don't remember exactly, but I remember people chimed in. Yeah, he did get all the evidence, but kind of after a fashion. Yeah. Like he got the documents, but why wasn't he there to hear it? It just seems strange.
Yeah. So also the Sheridan has to jump. Yes.
Oh yeah, jump down.
And Boft and Ivanova's God. That's such a great monologue.
Oh, the mantra. That is my mantra. Yes. She is right. She is God. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You know the other Ivanova line that's really kind of stuck with me through everything, that from the very beginning, the get-go, one of the very first things that I just thought this show is going to stick with me was the boom today, boom tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
That's so good. That, and then also in Midnight on the Firing Line, where she tells Talia, I'm in the middle of 15 things, all of them annoying. I immediately started saying that to my mother, much to her chagrin. She's like, really? You? What have you got to worry about? Well, you know.
So another question that just came up, Kurt, what's your favorite battle and why?
Ooh,
do you have an answer? Because I have an answer. I have an immediate
If you've got an answer, go first.
And I don't remember what the name of it is, but it's the climax where the Shadows and the Vorlons get together and the White Star, and they just jabber out a solution.
Oh, okay.
Because it was so unsatisfying. You didn't have that Death Star moment. And I loved it. I love not having a Death Star moment.
I loved how you loved how that was sort of anticlimactic for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, nope, that's how it needed to end. So I it's really hard for me to get into CGI pew 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 unless it's a jump gate. I really don't care. And if it's jump gate, I hate it. So I either hate it or I don't care.
That's your big takeaway.
Yeah.
You hate jump gates.
We're more than an hour before I mention jump gates. It's got to be some kind of record.
It is.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So unless I bold choice is bold the right word?
I think so. I don't think many people would say that. I think really my choice would be the Battle for Earth, just because it's so well executed.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good one. The bar fight, Garibaldi tricking Sheridan.
That breaks my heart. But you know what I do love is the music in the background. You can go on YouTube and there is a track for it. Grunge lives on in the 90s, and that makes my 90s heart very happy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff. So,
the composition of that, the way that they mixed, it's like slow-mo, fast.
Oh, right.
And then stills, and just the lighting. You're warning, you might have a seizure if you're prone to that, just because of how good it is.
Yeah, there was a lot of technique we saw in that we didn't see before, and really we didn't see much after either. It was much more
really.
Cinematic.
Yeah, really. I mean, okay, if you want to have a critique on season 5 going down in quality, maybe it's the fact that by season 4, it's such a well-run machine. And then season 5, it really does feel like they are much more constrained on their budget. And they had to shoot in fewer days. So they didn't have the time to get as creative as that and do cool things like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we're almost an hour and a half in.
Should we start wrapping up?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have really stuck through this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sticking through all the hiccups we've had. We appreciate it. And it's cool that I'm keeping an eye on how many people are watching. It's cool that we're at our highest number at the end, which doesn't always happen. So
no, usually people drop out.
Thank you for sticking with.
Yeah, you're all so awesome. I'm kind of sad. This might be the last live show we do. Maybe. Which leads to, should we have the moment of truth?
Let's do it. Let's have the moment of truth.
All right. So, Patrick.
Yes.
You've watched all 5 seasons of Babylon 5.
I have.
There's a little more to go.
There is.
Would you like to watch the movies?
The chat has an answer.
Yes, they sure do.
No, the answer is yes. We're going to watch the movies.
Whoa, that is not what I expected, you guys.
We're going to watch the movies. When, I don't know. And are we going to record a reaction?
Maybe.
I don't. That's something we need to figure out. One of the things that we promised we'd tell you about is our future plans.
Yes.
And future projects that we're working on. I think one of them will be some sort of recorded reaction to the Babylon 5 movies. Okay. Now, whether it's one reaction per movie or one video that's reacting to everything, we got to figure that out.
Okay, yeah, we haven't really sorted that out. Okay, I'm honestly a little shocked that you do want to do it. I figured if we were going to do it, and we probably will do it this way since you teach, over Christmas break.
Yeah.
It's either going to happen then, or it's not going to happen at all.
Yeah, no, it'll happen, and it'll probably happen over Christmas break. We do have in my school, because of how we're set up, we have a pretty extended Christmas break.
Yeah, there's a winter semester.
Yes, and I don't teach during the winter semester, so I get a little bit of a break in there. So,
I just noticed the likes on this video going way up after your revelation.
So yes, I am definitely going to watch, and how we're going to share the reaction to that, I think we still need to figure out the details of that.
But we'll figure it out. We'll let you know.
We will, and it'll probably look a little bit different. Our set that we had set up.
Yeah, our set and our high quality special effects.
Yes, we had to tear down our set.
We could put it back up.
But we could put it back up.
Just take some assembly, Yeah,
and so my guess would probably be late February, early March, when and if we do that. Yeah. Depending on post-production and how long that takes.
If we want to record it, and considering what happened today, I'm a little more weary of doing it live. But maybe in the comments, you guys tell us, what would you prefer? Would you prefer something a little more polished and edited, or would you just, screw it, or we're doing it live?
Yeah.
And then that way we do get to interact with you in real time while things are working properly. So that part of it is cool. That's something I love about the live shows every time, is we actually get to have a little bit of back and forth.
Mm-hmm. So we'd love to hear from you on that, what you think. So both, we might do, we haven't really talked about it too deep, because I didn't even tell her yes.
No.
I was very secretive, and I wanted it to be genuine, so I didn't tell her until.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. It was a surprise.
So what we could do is maybe one live show, and then recorded reactions for each movie, and then one live show.
We could do that. Yeah, there are other things beyond the movies too. You can watch the spin-offs. Mm-hmm. There's things that we can do. It just really depends on how much of a completionist you want to be, how far you really want to go.
Damn it. She brought up the word completionist because your boy is a completionist.
Which means then we have to watch Crusade, we can watch Lost Tales, we can do Legend of the Rangers, which is a pilot spinoff. We could.
Yes.
We could. But let's start with the movies and then maybe go from there. I mean, if you fizzle out, that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Okay.
So
but
review the books, James says. Yeah.
Yes.
You know what? I have some of them. I really need to buckle down and start reading them.
Well, and a big part of why I'm
Elric, you're right.
So big reason why I'm so for it is because if I'd gotten to the end of season 5 and been like, oh thank God it's over, right? I'd feel differently, but I didn't feel that way. I felt like I was like, this was what I had hoped it would be, and so I think that's kind of the bow I want to put on this, at least for today, is that I want more.
Hey,
I want more.
Okay.
And so I think that's a good feeling to have when you finish a show, is you want to feel like, I don't know, maybe this is just me, you want to feel like they cut it a little short. You want to feel like, man, they could have done a little bit more. There's more on the table here. You don't want to get to the end of a series and be like, oh, thank God it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And Babylon 5 for me wasn't that way. I didn't get to the end and say, oh, thank God it's done. I said, there's more here, even with a season 5 that I know critically probably wasn't.
It's not as highly regarded as, say, seasons 3 and 4, maybe 2. But really, they all have things that are worthwhile. I mean, you can't have the actions of seasons 3 and 4 without the building in season 1 and the rising action in 2. They all have their purpose.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't know, the amount of times that we talked about spin-offs in season 5 was a sign that the movies should be a go.
It's true, and I still want the adventures of Lita and Jakar.
Yes.
People are recommending not watching Legend of the Rangers. I'll let you decide that. This is
what?
your experience.
Maybe that'll finally be my chance to roast.
Oh.
Maybe it's my chance to roast.
Okay, it could be.
Yeah.
We'll find out if and when you watch it. So I guess the immediate thing that we're going to do is probably over break. We'll watch some of the movies and we'll record our reactions and then maybe recap with a live show when we've watched them all. And a lot of people in the comments have said you really ought to watch In the Beginning, as well as the original pilot, The Gathering. I think that would be a good place to go to start, and then keep going from there.
Yeah. And so I'm totally game. I'm game for a lot of it, and we'll watch the ones that she recommends first, and then see where it goes from there. I'm open to it. So.
Yeah, things do continue with the movies. I won't go into too much detail, but yeah, if you want to see a little bit of the future between the end of season 5 and Sleeping in Light, there's a couple of gaps that we fill. Cool. So if you want to know what happens next, we'll just have to keep watching.
Awesome.
And as for other projects, I do the Zocalo, which is a weekly Babylon 5 vidcast streaming here on YouTube. I do it with my friend Norman Lau, and we're both diehard B5 fans who love the show dearly. We do a variety of topics. This Sunday, later today, we're doing kind of like a B5 gratitude festival type of thing. Like, there's not really a whole lot of holidays on Babylon 5, but what if they did? What if they had kind of like a potluck and talked about things they were grateful for? What would everybody bring? What would they be grateful for? And then we're just going to kind of have like some free-flowing conversation because it's a holiday and we just want to relax a little bit. We're going to do that. And then you and I, we've talked about other stuff, but nothing is solid at this very moment. Yeah,
and the things that we do in the future, certainly it's going to be some Babylon 5 movies and etc.
But beyond that,
we're talking about things that we both love. Right now, we're talking, maybe something to do with Beavis and Butthead, which is one of our favorite shows. It's two children of the 90s. We might be able to do something with that. We're kicking that around. I'm kicking around either, me playing the foil again or introducing Shar to one of my favorite shows.
That's right.
We've talked about that. And so what that might be, we're totally not sure. We kind of want a little bit of a break though. The putting this together and getting it done, it was a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but it was also a pretty big time commitment, and
sure.
and certainly for Shar more than me. She did a lot more of the production work than I did. I did the editing, but she did a lot of the production, and
well, I tried.
Yeah. And so
I got it so far.
And so we're kind of finding some different ways to enjoy our little bit of downtime and go back to some of the other things that we love. And
refresh.
I've been working on a book that has required a lot of time and effort.
That's what you're working on right now.
And so I want to be able to finish my book and then move on from that. So my book, in case you were curious, I'll give you one guess what it's about. It's about Wyoming high school football. So I'm finishing that up.
And it's a thick thing, you guys. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I did an edition of it in 2011. I'm doing a second edition. It came out it's coming out hopefully in the next month. And it's going to be 600 pages, and it's just, right?
Yeah.
So tapping into some of those passion projects, and I don't want to give too much away, but somebody is taking a few classes and looking at maybe a career change as well. So
yep.
So
right here.
So I've
got things I'm doing too.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm always doing, like, I'm juggling a few projects at a time because I love it. That's what I really like to do. So I'm trying to do a career change that will maybe afford me more opportunity to, yes, make some money, but then also manage other things on the side and see where they go, because you just never know. Yeah, I'm writing an audio drama right now with my partner in crime, Philip Gilfus, and that's been in the works for a while, but we're still working on it because it is a process. But I'm really proud of what we're doing, and so I'm hoping within a year here, it'll be released and you'll know all about that.
So you've got that. You've also got another audio drama that you're a part of.
Yes.
Where you do some voice work, and then you're also doing a separate spin-off of that. And so there's a lot of things in the works. So the best way to we want a log line of the audio drama.
Oh, okay. It's basically, think on the lines of kind of like Galaxy Quest, where it's not quite a spoof, but it's silly. It's a silly future. It's a stupid future. It's not quite like Star Trek Lower Decks, but it's kind of along those lines, but it's our own vision of the future taking place 200 years from now. And so we have kind of like a development of what things are like on Earth. We have colonies that are of Earthlings that are separate from Earth. We have aliens, and their cultures are all very different. And how do they interact, and what are the politics of that future? It's interesting. And our main characters are somewhat incompetent at their jobs, but they don't think they are, and so then the hijinks ensue. That's not a log line, but there you go. There's a preview. Let's see. Oh, Andrew, you asked earlier, is my show, The Zocalo, pre-recorded or live? It is live, but you can catch a replay. If I recall correctly, you might be over the pond, so it's probably either really late or really early for you, depending. I would catch a replay. Please get some sleep.
Mm-hmm. And so I think the best way to see what we're up to is follow us on our social medias.
Yes.
Available at the end of every Babble for 5.
Well, no, I don't think they are, actually.
Oh, well.
They were in the very last one, though,
okay, well,
for Sleeping in Light.
There
They're in the description. And it's the profanity for me, P. Schmidt for you.
Yeah. And I would encourage you, if you followed the Nerd Party for Babble for 5, continue to follow the Nerd Party, because they're going to be doing some other cool stuff as well.
Oh, always. I mean, it's a collection of people doing various things in various fandoms. So I imagine even when we're long gone and when we're no longer doing B5 stuff, somebody's going to take the mantle in the channel and do something cool with it. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of what and when, we don't know. And there's always ideas, though.
And they do a lot of podcasts and a lot of other things that are not on YouTube. So check them out. I encourage that. They gave us a platform to do this.
Yeah, thanks, Nerd Party.
We're really appreciative to them and for allowing us that.
Yeah, and I think to close things up, I just want to thank you all again. One, for sticking through this stream, which has now gone well over an hour, this third incarnation. Hey, 3s, you guys. Yeah. I guess that's the way that was meant to be, huh? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, yeah, thank you for everything, for your comments every single week, for joining us on the live shows. You're a wonderful group to have in our corner. You're great. So I'm looking forward to doing the movies with you now, just so we can all get together again and do this just a little bit longer.
Yep. And of course, if any of you want to cross the other wall and become fans of Wyoming high school football, you may join me anytime.
Check it out, guys. The website, the book, you name it. And I will be getting to work on that audio drama. I promise at some point it will be released in podcast form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to echo everything she just said. Thank you. Thank you for making me feel so welcome. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for allowing me to join your community. I will not forget how gracious everyone has been, and it's meant a lot. It really has. So thank you.
Yeah, I can't echo that enough. Thank you for making his experience just so good and positive and fun. And thank you for wanting to do this project, for wanting to be a part of the community and see what I was raving about all this time.
Yeah.
Well, now you know.
Well, thank you. I love you. And let's give the fans what they want.
Okay. Is that what you wanted? But there you go. I love you too.
Yeah, you finally got to see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think that's it for now. We'll be back later after we've watched some movies. We'll make announcements when we have a set time as to when that's going to come.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Yeah. And
yep. Be seeing you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. See you next time. Okay.